Now, DC has an orange man. LAO2 has a fearless leader. He is unapologetically fighting back in DC on behalf not only of his constituents in LAO2, but all of Louisiana. Congressman Carter began his service as an executive assistant to then Mayor Sidney Bartholomew. In 1991, he made history as the first African American ever elected to represent Louisiana's District 102. That deserves a clap, yes. Where he also served as the youngest floor leader in New Orleans. He was later elected as the first African American to represent the New Orleans City Council District C. Don't we love him? As a Louisiana State Senator for the 7th District, he served as Senate Minority Leader, becoming the first African American to do that as well. As a legislative leader, Congressman Carter has authored or co-authored hundreds of laws focusing on infrastructure, the economic development, women's health care, criminal justice reform, and reducing homelessness. He is a steadfast advocate for civil rights, health care, equality, and environmental justice, and so much more. He is we love him, we can clap through every part of it. I'm not sure how many of you know, he's the founder and host of What Makes America Tick with Congressman Troy Carter Sr. If you have not seen this podcast, check it out, it's awesome. During this podcast, Congressman Carter has engaging conversations with change makers, thought leaders, cultural icons, exploring people, ideas, and forces shaping our nation. He is a published writer. He has been featured in national and regional outlets including The Hill, Essence Magazine, and the New Orleans Tribune, offering commentary on public policy, social justice, and the evolving American narrative. Congressman Carter is a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. He is married to Major General Anna Carter of the United States Army, and they are the proud parents of Troy Sr. and Joshua Carter. Introducing to some, welcoming to others, the definition of boots on the ground, Congressman Troy Carter.
Thank you to my friends, my family, the community that I'm proud to share with. It is indeed an honor to have you here as we begin a real serious discussion about some real serious stuff. I am so very proud to be home after spending so much time in Washington fighting the evils of that big, ugly bill. A big, ugly bill that will undoubtedly hurt people in our state and our country. It will not only hurt Democrats. It will hurt Republicans and independents and people throughout. The notion that this is some partisan bill, it's only partisan because the Republican Party, by and large, pushed through a bill with their nearly unanimous support against the wishes of even our state legislature that is controlled by Republicans. All because a president said it's the right thing to do. Never mind our mission to take an oath of office, to honor our Constitution, to honor our rule of law, and to honor the people who send us to Washington. We are not obligated to follow any president. We're obligated to fight for the people that send us to Washington. This is a very timely opportunity to have this town hall to talk about what Republican attacks on American health care looks like. I want to thank President Verrett, the president of this esteemed university that I am proud to be an alumnus. Dr. Verrett, you're out there. Give him a round of applause. Dr. Verrett, his entire team who have been so incredibly helpful and generous to us to answer the bell, to prepare the auditorium, to make sure that everything was safe and clean and bright as it always is here, to make sure that we would host you. Thank you so much to the entire Xavier University family. I want to give a special greeting to my colleague, my friend, the leader of the Democratic Caucus, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Congresswoman Nanette Barragán, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, and Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz for traveling all the way from their home to come to our home. That's how important this is for the American people. It is great to be here with everyone as we gather to discuss one of the most vital issues affecting our nation, access to affordable, quality health care through Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act, or the ACA. As you know, Medicaid plays a crucial role in providing care for 1.4 million Louisianians and nearly $13 billion to our state in 2023. The ACA premium tax credits help the marketplace coverage more affordable in individuals and families' eligibility for Medicaid. It's essential that we continue to both strengthen Medicaid and extend ACA premium tax credits. Congressional Republicans' big, ugly bill takes just the opposite of that approach. In fact, Congresswoman Barragán and Kelly and I we all serve on Energy and Commerce Committee. We spent nearly 27 hours around the clock, 27 hours in committee, offering hundreds of amendments to try to slow down this big, ugly bill, fighting for the people, making sure that our voices were heard even though we didn't have the votes. Just because we don't have the votes don't mean we lose. We have our voices. And you've heard me talk many times about the 3 C's, the Congress, the courts, and the community. Tonight is that aspect of the 3 C's, you, the community, as we lean into you to inform you of where we are, to hear what you have to say, and then to go back to Washington and continue fighting. Continue fighting against those who would seek to take away the rights of Americans, take away the rights of citizens, take away those constitutional safeguards that's made America, America. We're not going to sit back and let it happen. Republicans plan to rip our constituents' health care away by slashing Medicaid and ACA tax credits. Simply put, Republicans, at Donald Trump's urging, have passed bills that cut more than $1 trillion from health care, including the largest Medicaid cut in the history of our country. This legislation will cause a $500 billion cut to Medicaid. More than 50,000 people are at risk of dying. Yes, that's not hyperbole. Dying. Because those precious moments that you have when you have a stroke, a heart attack, or some fatal illness, and you can't get to a hospital because you don't have access to health care. And more importantly, because those rural hospitals that used to be close in your community, well, they're gone. Because rural hospitals will leave us. These are policy decisions that will result in nearly 17 million Americans losing their health care. Hospitals and nursing home closures. 33 rural hospitals in Louisiana are threatened to shutter. And lower quality health care for those with coverage. It will put seniors, the disabled, and our children at risk. Also, Republicans can give trillions of dollars in tax breaks to billionaires and the biggest corporations. It is, in fact, reverse Robin Hood, Mr. Mayor. Reverse Robin Hood. It is stealing from the poor and giving to the rich. It's having tax breaks for no tip on tax for our working people. But watch this. They're running around and bragging about, oh, but look what we have for our working people. We've taken tips Tax off tips, not exactly true. It's only up to the first $24,000 that you've earned. Anything above that, you're still taxed. And oh, by the way, tax breaks for the richest rich, they're permanent, forever. Those tax on tips for our working people, only 4 years. It expires in 4 years. It is the epitome of three-card Monte. Watch my hand while I slap you with this one. The American people are being slapped with this one. And we are here tonight to tell you we know better. And we're going to continue to fight to make sure that we educate our people and that this battle is not over. I'm proud of the fight Democrats have put during the debate on this big, ugly bill and will continue to make our voices heard. That's why I'm so proud to host today's town hall and continue the conversation on these vital issues. We're fortunate enough to have an esteemed healthcare expert with us here today, Mr. C.J. Marbley, who will offer his insights and expertise on the current state of healthcare in our state. We're also joined by Ms. Katie Corcoran and Mr. Eugene Collins, who will share their personal experiences with Medicaid. I want to personally thank each of you for joining us today and look forward to hearing from you. I encourage all of you to ask the questions through the question cards that staff will be walking around with, that we will fill out and put them in a bucket, and we'll pull them by lot, and if the question's been asked or answered already, we'll move on to the next. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we possibly can. It is my special pleasure to introduce my Democratic colleagues who've come all the way to Louisiana in the bad weather when they could be home talking to their constituents, but it's important enough, and Louisiana is important enough, that we have the top leadership of our Steering and Policy Committee here in Louisiana and with us tonight. First, I will bring up my dear friend Nanette Barragán from California's 44th District. Congresswoman Barragán is a history maker, serving as the first Latina to represent her congressional district. A proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, Congresswoman Barragán started her public service career working in the Clinton White House and now proudly serves with me on the Energy and Commerce Committee in the House of Representatives. Congresswoman Barragán is a leading voice on environmental and health equity and a tireless advocate for clean air, clean water, health care for all, and everything that is right and pure for the American people. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in giving a big round of applause to Nanette Barragán, Congresswoman from California.
Well, good evening. It's great to be here in New Orleans at Xavier University. Thank you all for the very warm welcome. I had a chance to walk around a little bit and meet a few of you. I'm one of the co-chairs of Steering and Policy, and we have been on the road. My district is in California, in Los Angeles. I represent the Port of LA, San Pedro, Long Beach, and so it's great to be here today because I think it's so important that we are on the road, that we're going into the communities, that we're talking and hearing directly from you, from the people, and that we continue to educate people about what is in this bill that is so bad. This Trump's big, ugly law is something we have to continue to talk about. And that is what Steering and Policy is doing. It's taking the show on the road to go right into the communities. And we are being led by our leader, Hakeem Jeffries, and my co-chairs, who you will hear from shortly. And that's because we want to hear from you. We've been to places like Rancho Mirage in Southern California, which is a district that's very purple. It's a district where you have a split of Democrats and Republicans there. We've been to Norfolk, Virginia. We've been to the suburbs of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And in California, we heard from people who talked about the concern about what the cuts were going to mean from that to them, from education programs to food assistance and veterans benefits, how they will harm Americans. In Virginia, we heard more detail about how the VA healthcare cuts will leave our veterans without the care that they need. And of course, we're hearing from people every day about the high cost of living. Do y'all think the cost of living is too high? I do too. And guess what? This president said he was going to bring prices down on day one. And what's happening? Prices are going up because of this, all of their policies. They are not focused on the price of living. We know in this bill, the cost of electricity is also going to go up. Your electricity bill, when it goes up, you'll know why. Healthcare subsidies are going to end for the Affordable Care Act this year. So when that premium goes up, it's because of Trump and Republicans and what they're doing. And that is what we are trying to do. Educate people about the impacts, but also it's about fighting for you. It's about House Democrats continuing to fight for you. And my colleague, by the way, Troy Carter, dear, dear, dear friend, who is fighting for the people of New Orleans, fighting for the people in his district, and there's no bigger champion in energy and commerce for you and his constituency in that committee that does everything on health care, does everything on energy, and so I'm proud to serve with your Congressman, Troy Carter. Now, we spent 27 hours in energy and commerce to fight this bill. House Democrats also introduced 500 amendments to try to slow the process down, to try to get them to agree to minimize the impact. And what did Republicans do? They said no. We're not going to take any of those. Why? All because they want to give tax cuts to their billionaire friends. You know, not a single House Democrat or a Senate Democrat voted for this bill. Why? Because it's going to harm the American people. Now, Republican Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Leader Scalise, both from Louisiana, they smiled, they danced, and they celebrated when this bill passed and was signed into law. Think about that. You're celebrating people losing their health care. You're celebrating the price is going up. You're celebrating nursing homes that could be shuttered, leaving our parents and our loved ones off the streets, celebrating community clinics who are going to feel the harm. It's so shameful, and that's why we have to continue to share our stories. We got to continue to speak up. We got to continue to protest. We got to continue to show up like you did tonight, because this is about the fight and continuing the fight. So we look forward to hearing from you tonight, and again, from somebody who's traveled from Los Angeles, California. It's about you, the people. It's about us fighting for you. So thank you, thank you, thank you for the opportunity to have me and have me come here to hear you, hear your concerns, and take questions. So thank you again, and let's give a round of applause, by the way, to your Congressmember, Troy Carter.
Bless you. Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman Barragán. Before I bring the next speaker up, I want to make sure that I take a moment to recognize my partners in justice. My partners in justice, and that's the elected officials here on the ground that serve every day, locally and in our state, fighting for what's right and being the perfect handoff for me as I bring resources from Washington, fight for policies in Washington, and support them as they fight here on the ground. Beginning with my dear friend and sister, Delisha Boyd. Where is she? Our state representative, who did a great job. I understand Mayor LaToya Cantrell is here, no? All right. Constable Ed Shorty. Clerk of Criminal District Court Ed Lombard. State Senator Royce Duplessis. State Senator Joseph Bowie. Our former mayor, Sidney Bartholomew. Former City Councilman, Lambert Bossier. State Representative Jason Hughes. Mayor Leroy Sullivan of Donaldsonville. Our Public Service Commissioner, Devontae Lewis. Congressman Reverend Tyrone Edwards. Judge Wanda Marine Lombard. Judge Kimya Holmes. Give them all a round of applause. Did I miss any of our illustrious members? Because I want to tell you, every one of them worked for you tirelessly, and I could not be more proud to call them my friends and to call them my partners in justice, not in crime, in justice. Next, we'll hear from Congresswoman Robin Kelly from Illinois' 2nd Congressional District. Congresswoman Kelly is a senior member of the Energy and Commerce Committee with me and Congresswoman Barragán, a champion for health equity. She serves as chair of the Congressional Black Caucus Health Brain Trust, working to eliminate disparities and improve wellness in underserved communities nationwide. She is an outspoken leader in the fight to end gun violence. Congresswoman Kelly serves as the co-chair of the Congressional Gun Violence Prevention Task Force and authored the first comprehensive review of gun violence epidemics in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in recognizing the next senator from the great state of Illinois, Robin Kelly.
Good evening, everyone. It is really an honor to be with you, and thank you so much to your Congressman Troy Carter for hosting. I told him he owes me some crawfish etouffee, so before I leave. But it's great to be back in New Orleans, and since Troy got a Kappa shout-out, I'll shout out my sorors of Sigma Gamma Rho. Thanks for being here. I know many of you are concerned about how Medicaid cuts will affect you and your loved ones. Medicaid is a lifeline for millions of people, and tonight you'll hear from 3 guests who personally know the impact of Medicaid. In difficult moments like this, I believe it's important to hear that you are not alone. In my home state of Illinois, nearly 500,000 people are now at risk of losing health care. 9 rural hospitals in Illinois will close, 2 in my district. Whether you're angry, confused, frustrated, or scared about the cuts to Medicaid, my colleagues and I came to Louisiana to help answer your questions and let you know that we are fighting like hell for you in Washington, D.C. Every Democrat voted no on President Trump's big, ugly bill, now law. If we could have voted hell no, we would have done that. At every step of the legislative process, we fought against Republicans to cut Medicaid, even when they scheduled committee hearings overnight. As you heard from Troy and Nanette, we sat in a 26-and-a-half-hour Energy and Commerce Committee where I didn't go to sleep, didn't go back to my office, rarely even went to the bathroom. Every Democrat on the committee shared a story from a constituent who relies on Medicaid. I shared the story of Cairo, a little boy who at the age of 2 years old was diagnosed with a rare genetic condition that leads to abnormal blood vessel connections. After spending a month and a half in the pediatric intensive care unit, Cairo medical expenses reached $2.5 million. As a mother and a grandmother myself, let me tell you, a parent will pay any cost to save their child. But as the richest country in the world, no loving parent should experience crippling medical debt to treat their children. Medicaid paid for Cairo's 24-hour care, which allowed his parents to continue working full-time. Let me repeat that, because Republicans are spreading the myth that Medicaid enables laziness and unemployment. Medicaid allowed his parents to work full-time. He has made tremendous progress. When he was first diagnosed, he was on a ventilator, he had ventilator support, he had little mobility and could not speak. Now he's completely off the ventilator and can walk. Medicaid is a lifeline for Cairo, his family, and millions of Americans across the country. I'm sure there are some people here tonight who rely on Medicaid or know someone who does. Republicans took away your health care to give a $5 trillion tax break to the well-off and well-connected. We all know that's not right. It's cruel and evil, immoral, and I can go on. It goes against our mandate as public servants. So tonight, we are here as public servants to listen to you. And I just want to tell you, hang in there and please don't get weary. And please don't stay on the sidelines. We all need to be fighting. Thank you.
Next, we have a fearless fighter from the great state of Florida. She's no stranger to these parts. She's our neighboring member of Congress, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She's a 20-year veteran of the United States House of Representatives, serving as a senior member of the powerful House Appropriations Committee, a breast cancer survivor. She authored the Early Act to improve breast cancer education and awareness. Yes, that's a good clap. Awareness, and worked in a bipartisan fashion to pass the PALS Act, expanding young women's access to life-saving screenings. As Florida's first Jewish woman to serve in Congress, she's consistently fought for the well-being of seniors, children, and families. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause to my friend, our Congresswoman, an outstanding leader, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you so much to Troy Carter, Xavier's own alumni. We are so proud to be able to be here. I'm so glad to be back in New Orleans. A few years ago, for a number of years in an unofficial role, I spent some time here in Louisiana campaigning for John Bell Edwards and Mary Landrieu and Mitch Landrieu and so many of Louisiana's own who really understood how to make sure that government could take care of people and could be used as a tool to help make people's lives better. And that's why we're here tonight. We want to make sure that we hear from you and that we're able to have a dialogue with you to help people understand the really painful, vicious impact of this big, ugly bill. And I am proud to be on Leader Jeffries' leadership team with these two incredible women. And I represent a district in southeast Florida, Florida's 25th congressional district. And, you know, my district, let's say, shares the same balmy climate as this one has. And so I feel right at home getting blasted with humidity when I came out of the airport. It just felt so good to be, you know, feeling comfortable in my environment, as well as the rain that you can set your watch by right around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It rains for maybe an hour at the most, and then boom, the next thing you know, it's sunny. No one else but people in the South can understand it, especially in the swampy South, which we are proud to hail from. So, as you all know, congressional Democrats vehemently opposed this vile Republican plunder of working families. And your representative in Congress, Troy Carter, was at the tip of the spear. I mean, no one was more assertive and more pointed about the pain that this bill would bring to his constituents, and you are so fortunate to be represented by this incredible human being. Really. And a dear friend. But this bill kills seniors, children, veterans, also the richest Americans can be showered with even more wealth. This billionaire handout strips health care coverage from 17 million Americans, nearly 2 million in my state alone, and around 90,000 in my own congressional district. It pushes millions into crowded, costly emergency rooms and saddles millions more with suffocating medical debt. It will force people into that horrible decision. Do I pay a big doctor bill to see a doctor now? Or do I wait and pay an even bigger bill in an emergency room later? And for many, that won't even be a choice now that the big ugly bill is law, because they won't be able to pay. This cruel law risks closing hundreds of hospitals and nursing homes, especially in rural and minority communities. Trump and congressional Republicans even steal record food assistance from millions of kids, seniors, and veterans just to pay for their tax scam. And why do I call it a scam? Because the top 0.1% of people will see an average benefit of over $300,000, while someone who earns $50,000 or less gets $247. That is obscene. But Republicans' pain doesn't end there, my friends. This law cripples solar and wind projects and kills millions of clean, green manufacturing and construction jobs. Do we want to do that? Do we think that we should be making sure that we take care of people or that we take care of the richest people? I think I know the answer that this crowd has, and that's why we're here tonight. It also blows up the national debt by $4 trillion, drives up interest rates on car loans and mortgages, and triggers $500 billion in Medicare cuts to seniors' health care. This bill makes life less affordable and more painful, and instead of uplifting lives, it will end them. When history looks back on this bill, its legacy will be Trump lied and people died. That's the bottom line. The cruelty is the point with these people. I didn't go to Congress to make people's lives worse. We serve to make lives better and to protect the most vulnerable among us. Clearly, our Republican colleagues didn't come to Congress for the same reason. So thank you so much for having us here today, and we look forward to the dialogue. Thank you so much.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Now, last but not least, it gives me extreme honor to present someone to you who is a dynamic leader. He's my friend. He's my fraternity brother. He's an outstanding leader. He's a New Yorker, and he loves America. And he has a perfect command of the Constitution, a perfect command of the rule of law, a perfect touch for what's right and humane. He's an outstanding leader. Last but not least, a man who needs no introduction. Than what we're getting. In that record-breaking House speech, he slowed down this big, ugly bill. He drew attention to the negative aspects of that big, ugly bill that we'll discuss tonight. He's a great man. He's a humble man. He's a smart man. He's a fearless man. It is my pleasure to present to you and the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana, the most honorable Hakeem Jeffries.
Good evening. Good evening, New Orleans. Good evening. So good to be here with all of you today here in the great state of Louisiana. So thankful for Troy Carter. Troy Carter is a good man, hard-working man, community man, courageous man, compassionate man, and a Kappa man. So thankful for my good friend Troy Carter for all of what he does, for his leadership, his friendship and partnership, and feel the same way about Robin and Debbie and Nanette, the three co-chairs of the Steering and Policy Committee. It's good to be with all of you here today. This is my first stop in a nationwide tour to make sure we continue to set the record straight as it relates to this one big, ugly bill. And not let anybody fool the American people. It's what we tried to do on the House floor. That's what we will continue to do all across the country. Because America deserves better than this. So I'm so thankful for Troy Carter convening us here at world-famous Xavier University campus. And for all of you coming out, notwithstanding the inclement weather, for this conversation and for us to continue to hear from everyday Americans who are going to be hurt by this bill. A bill that will hurt the people in order to reward billionaires. That's unconscionable, unacceptable, and it's un-American. And our promise to you is that we're going to do everything we can, no matter how long it takes, to reverse this damage that is being done to the American people. We believe in America that health care is not simply something that should be available to the privileged few. It is a right that should be available to every single American. And that's what we're fighting hard to achieve. This bill represented an unprecedented assault on health care, unprecedented assault on Medicaid, on Medicare, on the Affordable Care Act, on the Children's Health Insurance Program, on services provided by Planned Parenthood. Unprecedented assault on health care from a group of people who promised not to touch Medicaid, and during the first chance they got, they did the exact opposite. Shame on them. Shame on them. Now, as many of you know, of course, this is the home state of the two top House Republicans. I've previously challenged the Speaker of the House to debate me anytime, any place. Since I'm in his home state, I was hoping he would show up here, y'all. But he has not. But we're willing to take our case to anyone and debate it because we know we're on the right side of these issues. And my message to all of my Republican colleagues will continue to be, you don't work for Donald Trump. You don't work for J.D. Vance. You don't work for Elon Musk. Members of Congress should work for all of you, the American people, and that is what we will continue to do. God bless each and every one of you.
Give it up, give it up. For our leader, a fearless, godly man who understands the importance of telling the truth and doing what's right for the American people. Give all four of my colleagues a round of applause. Next, I want to take a moment to bring up and introduce three impacted citizens of Louisiana to talk about their real-life stories about what these massive cuts, how painful this will be to their families and the experiences and lived experiences that they have. And I'd ask you to give your attention to, first, C.J. Marbley, our impacted guest. C.J. Marbley brings a wealth of clinical and administrative experience in his role as the Chief Nursing Officer for New Orleans East Hospital. Well, he provides strategic leadership and direction for nursing and patient care services. A former trauma and ICU nurse, CJ's hand-on clinical background informs his commitment to excellence in patient care and nursing practices and what it will mean to the people of Eastern New Orleans and the surrounding areas if these ugly, ugly components of this bill continue to go. Ladies and gentlemen, join me recognizing C.J. Marbley.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Thank you to our distinguished guests and our distinguished congressmen. You know, only my wife would be excited about me speaking after Hakeem Jeffries. But I'll try to make it short and sweet. So I am C.J. Marbley. I've been a nurse for 32 years. In 20 of those years, I've been in healthcare leadership. I'm a son of a nurse who worked at a safety net hospital in Houston for over 30 years. When I first graduated from Howard University, I also worked at a safety net also worked at a safety net hospital in Washington, D.C. Started my career off. And now I'm honored to be a healthcare executive at a hospital, a community hospital like New Orleans East Hospital that serves as a critical access, hospital for many community members, and also as a dual role at University Medical Center, which serves as the safety net hospital for the city of New Orleans and for the state of Louisiana. All part of LCMC Health. Throughout my career, I've seen up close the most vulnerable people living paycheck to paycheck, showing up in our ERs and our trauma rooms. But those are the people who serve our tourists, who care for our children, who build our communities. And let me be clear, Medicaid is a lifeline for all of them. As we examine the outcomes of this bill, I look at the most vulnerable people in New Orleans. The facts are out there. 1.4 million of our neighbors are on Medicaid in the state of Louisiana. Over 40% of our state's population rely on Medicaid for their health care. Remarkably, and you don't hear this a lot, 69% of those adults on Medicaid are also working. They're contributing to our economy. They often have jobs that just don't have health insurance. In Orleans Parish, 9.4% of our citizens are uninsured. This number will skyrocket if Medicaid is cut back. Heartbreakingly, in Louisiana, maternal mortality rates are some of the highest in the nation. Black women are 4 times more likely to die than white women with pregnancy complications. With over 63% of our maternal births in Louisiana covered by Medicaid, any reduction in this critical program means a potential loss of life for the infant and the mother. New Orleans is known for fun, food, festivals, but the artists, the hospitality workers, the rideshare drivers, the gig workers who make it possible will be affected the most. They're the backbone of this vibrant culture, but they rely on Medicaid for their care to keep them healthy enough to keep the culture alive. At New Orleans East, we've even partnered with our Shade Culture Arts Center to train some of these artists to be community health workers, using their trusted voices to connect people to care, to connect people to well care, preventative care that keeps people out of crisis. As we look at behavioral health, Medicaid is the dominant payer for this service, covering everything from crisis intervention to addiction services to psychotherapy. This bill means disrupted care, more ER visits, more incarcerations, and more disrupted care. Medicaid is the primary lifeline for mental health and substance use disorder treatment for most of our vulnerable citizens. We must remember that eliminating coverage does not reduce the cost. It increases it. When people can't access primary care, they wait till things get worse. It means higher ER uses, more avoidable hospitalizations, and ultimately a higher taxpayer burden. This is a moral choice. It's about protecting the health of our workforce, our culture bearers, our mothers, and our elderly, and our future. Thank you very much.
Next, we will hear from Katie Corcoran, and some of our colleagues, you will remember that Katie and her husband and her son traveled all the way to Washington when we had that nearly 27-hour markup. Brave enough to travel all the way to California with her son, who was born with a congenital heart issue that led to other complications. Katie Corcoran and her family are well respected in disability rights and mental health advocate based in Amite, Louisiana. All the way from Amite, she's here tonight in this bad weather. Not because it's fun, but because it's important. Her advocacy work is deeply personal, inspired by her son Connor, who was born with multiple disabilities and requires comprehensive care. This personal experience has fueled her commitment to improving healthcare access and support services for individuals with disabilities, particularly in rural communities like the one that she and her family are in. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in listening to the real-life story of someone who will be deathly impacted by Medicaid cuts. Katie Corkin.
Good evening, and thank you all for letting me speak today. I'm excited to be here, although not excited about the issue we find ourselves in. My name is Katie Corkin, and I live in Amite, Louisiana with my husband, a veteran and a law enforcement officer, and our 3 sons. I'm a former special education teacher, and I'm a full-time advocate and caregiver for our middle son, Connor. Connor was diagnosed at 6 weeks old with a severe brain malformation. Doctors said that if he'd survive, he would need 24/7 care. He is medically fragile with complex physical and intellectual disabilities. At 3 years old, we put him on a waiting list for a home and community-based waiver. For 6 long years while we waited, we lived in and out of hospitals, managing seizures, pneumonia, and medical crises, while trying to hold our family together. Everything changed the day Connor received an emergency Medicaid waiver. Today, he's 18 years old. Medicaid provides everything he needs to survive and live safely at home. Nursing, therapies, daily care, equipment, so many things. Medicaid has not only kept Connor alive, it's kept our family intact. That's why I'm deeply concerned about the budget reconciliation bill. I'm not going to call it the other thing. While it doesn't directly impact home and community-based services, like they said, it wouldn't target our vulnerable populations, it didn't protect them either, and that's the issue we find ourselves in. Federal Medicaid dollars make up 79% of Louisiana's Medicaid budget. This bill reduces that federal funding, meaning the state will have to either fill the gap or make cuts. And history shows us, here in Louisiana, where those cuts land, and they're on optional services, like the very waiver that keeps my son at home. We've seen it before. After federal Medicaid funding dropped in 2011, Louisiana slashed waiver slots, and the waiting list grew and grew. People were waiting upwards of 10, 15 years sometimes for a waiver. And these optional services may be the legal term, but for families like mine, these services are essential. I also worry about the red tape in the bill. I already struggle as a college-educated woman who is tech-savvy to renew Connor's coverage every year. The system is broken and inefficient. Long waits, dropped calls, and glitchy websites. I'm lucky I can drive 30 minutes to deliver hand deliver the paperwork, but so many people cannot. This bill doesn't just hurt families, it hurts communities. We live in rural Louisiana, where our small local hospital, Hood Memorial, has assisted in saving Connor's life more than once. Medicaid keeps places like that open. Without it, access to life-saving care disappears. The bill's sponsors say it protects the vulnerable, but it passes the burden to states and pits one group of vulnerable people against another. The rhetoric around able-bodied adults is misleading and harmful. It ignores invisible disabilities, mental illness, and the realities of poverty and trauma. And it does nothing to improve care or reduce fraud. This bill doesn't strengthen Medicaid, it shrinks it. It strips away the very supports that keep families whole and communities functioning. I'm grateful to the leaders who see Medicaid as more than a budget item. It's a promise that people with disabilities and everyone else won't be abandoned when things get tight. Cuts like these don't just take away services. They take away dignity, independence, and sometimes life itself. My son deserves better. All children do. And I want our elected officials in Congress that supported this bill so wholeheartedly to know that we will not forget. Thank you for listening and standing with families like mine and the rural communities that we call home.
You know all this stuff about people not working and those scofflaws who have Medicaid? Here are two people that worked every day, but they could not survive for their child without Medicaid. She's a school teacher. Her husband's a law enforcement agent. They go to work every day, but without these waivers, the child would have to be at home alone. Unconscionable. Evil. Mean-spirited. Before I bring up our last impacted person, I'm going to ask everyone, if you have questions and we have not received your card yet, raise your hand and someone will come around to pick it up. I think we've got everybody, but if anyone came in late and we don't have your card, raise your hand and someone will come to pick it up. Next, I am honored to bring Eugene Collins as our next impacted guest. Eugene Collins is past president of the Baton Rouge NAACP, a proud member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity. All right. He couldn't get a cap, that's okay. Good brother. Executive director of Baton Rouge AIDS Society. Eugene's sister Jessica died at just 33, along with her unborn son Jace, after her concerns about high blood pressure were dismissed by a doctor because her Medicaid had lapsed. She returned to the hospital only to be left waiting until she suffered a fatal stroke. The story helped inspire the Jessica Collins Ruffins Act, expanding Medicaid coverage for midwifery care. Today, Eugene continues to fight so no more black mothers or babies are simply lost because their voices weren't heard. Demanding, yeah, that's appropriate. Demanding that we respect, trust, and listen to black women about their health care and reverse the trend of having the highest maternal outcome in the country, right here in our state. Ladies and gentlemen, Eugene Collins.
Well, I'll tell you, with all these Kappa men here, I guess they had to invite one Sigma. So my name is Eugene Collins, and I'm the former president of the Baton Rouge NAACP. But today, I'm not here to talk about that. I stand here simply as Jessica's big brother. Jessica Collins Ruffin was a mother, a wife, a daughter, and my baby sister. A woman who could bake cakes so good it'd make you dance, Speaker Jeffries. She should be here with us right now, but she's not because the system failed her. When Jessica was pregnant, terrified about her blood pressure, she went to the hospital's clinic and found out that her Medicaid had lapsed that very day. They turned her away. My mom would later send her back, and she sat in the ER waiting room with a blood pressure of 280 over 190. A ticking time bomb. She stroked out and started seizing right there. My nephew Jace died 3 days before Jessica. We never even had the heart to tell her. 10 days after my baby sister walked into that ER, my sister was gone. So hear me clear. That's not just a statistic on some report. That's why the strongest man I know, my daddy, can't keep a picture on his wall. It's why my mama smiles, just enough to keep us moving, but I know she ain't all right. It's why my sister Ebony has to hold all of us together. It's why her daughter Alana still throws her baby brother a birthday party every year for a boy who never got a chance to blow out a candle. It's why her husband died recently for what I know was a broken heart. Now let's chop it up about what's happening right now. They're slashing Medicaid by 18%. That's a $1.1 trillion cut. Adding work requirements that say if you're not clocking 80 hours a month at a job, volunteering or school, you can't get help. We're not adding jobs, but we're adding job requirements. They're adding $35 co-pays. That might not mean much to some rich, out-of-touch Republicans, but here in Louisiana, where the livable minimum wage is a myth, that's a half day's pay. They're putting restrictions on how states like ours, with the second highest share of people on Medicaid in this country, can even fund care. Let's be real, that puts 267,000 folks in Louisiana at risk of losing coverage. It could stick our state with another $4 billion bill, and if we don't pay it, we gotta look our neighbors in the eye and tell them, sorry, you're on your own. So hear me when I say, this is not just a health issue. This is a liberty issue. The 14th Amendment promises that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process, nor deny them equal protection under the law. But what does that mean if my sister couldn't even get a doctor to hear her heartbeat? What's equal protection worth if 4 black mothers die for every 1 white mother in Louisiana? You love to sing about this sweet land of liberty, but liberty can't stop at the hospital door. Freedom isn't real if black women walk into hospitals and too many never walk back out. Yes, we've seen some progress. The Jessica Collins Ruffin Act exists because Senator Regina Barrow filed it, Frankie Robertson pushed it, and warriors like Dina Morrison, Dr. Elmer Stewart Allen, Caitlin Joshua, Nancy Davis, and Diana Payton, they never quit. These are the soldiers on the front line. But let me stop and talk to my big brothers for a second. Don't be me. I didn't understand this problem until it walked into my house. If your sister called you and said that a man had put their hands on her, you'd be ready to burn the whole block down. Well, let me tell you something, big brother. This system has their hands around our sister's neck, and we need that same energy. Where's your fire at? And to this country that loves to sing, my country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, I say let freedom ring, not just from the mountainsides, but from the Medicaid offices, from the maternity wards, and from every place that a mother stands. And see, my grandmother had a saying. She would always tell us ain't nothing too tough for a cowards. See, I stand on the shoulders of people who bled and fought for their promise. I'll keep fighting so no other family has to bury their baby sister like I did. So remember this. If liberty is your creed, then justice must lead. If freedom you shout, then hear black mothers out. If this nation is great, prove it by faith. Let our daughters live before it's too late.
While you're standing, let's keep that applause going for CJ, Katie, and Eugene, our 3 individuals who are brave enough to tell their stories. Thank you all for your time and patience. Now we'll get to the part where we hear from you, where we will answer the questions that you've presented. We'll do a few that were sent in via the computer, and then we will draw from a lot of individuals that we collected today to make sure that we hear. We asked those who RSVP to submit questions, and now I'm going to read a few and take responses from our panel. And after that, we'll select a few questions which you should have received as you turned in. Those questions are live. And selected from the questions, we have the first question, which asks, when will the impacts of Medicaid start? How will our most vulnerable neighbors be harmed by this bill? I'm going to start by giving you just some Louisiana statistics. Donald Trump and House Republicans promised lower costs for the American families. They lied. Republicans are betraying the middle class and raising costs for American families, all to pay and provide giveaways to Trump billionaire donors. Here in Louisiana alone, 267,550 people will lose health care insurance. 33 rural hospitals are at risk of shutting their doors. And in LAO2 alone, there will be a $690 average increase in premiums for people in LAO2 covered under the Affordable Care Act. That's real. When I was in the state Senate in 2016 and Governor John Bel Edwards was governor, the first thing we did, we expanded Medicaid. With that expansion, some 638,000 people were added to the rolls. 638,000 people. Nearly 1 million people added to the rolls. Rural hospitals started reopening, providing resources. My friends, the reverse is also true. Many of those people will come off the rolls. Many of those hospitals will close. And yes, as painful as it is, people will die. This is not a game. This is not please the president. This is care for the American people. And that's why we're here tonight. Speaker, Mr. Leader, Speaker to be. The question is, when will these impacts start? And how can we help protect the vulnerable neighbors from this big, ugly bill?
Well, let me join you, first of all, in thanking CJ and Kate and Eugene for their powerful testimony here before all of you, and for really pouring into each of us in terms of the real-life tragic consequences that may result. I was listening to Eugene thinking to myself, not bad for a Sigma man. But all of them were very powerful. You know, Congressman Carter mentioned that the effects of this are going to be life-altering and life-changing, and that's the reality, and that will begin almost immediately. Now, some of my Republican colleagues have said, well, they've delayed the cuts. The reality is, because hospitals have to think about their future funding streams, and the reality that they will lose tens of millions of dollars per institution, if not more, sooner rather than later. Services will begin to immediately cease. And in some instances, we know hospitals are going to shut down, nursing homes. More than 70% of the people in Louisiana who are in nursing homes receive their care as a result of Medicaid. And once you start to impact hospitals, once you start to impact nursing homes and their future revenue, once you start to impact community-based health clinics, the people who receive their care from Medicaid or the Affordable Care Act are impacted, but entire communities are impacted at the end of the day. Because if a hospital shuts down, nobody gets care, whether you have private insurance or not, because it's not there for you. Same thing with a nursing home, same thing with community-based health clinics. And so the impacts of this law, unfortunately, are going to be felt almost immediately. But there is opportunity here, because some of those aspects of the one big ugly bill that have been delayed from formally taking effect until after the midterm elections, that was no coincidence, y'all. But I'm convinced the American people will not be fooled by this trickery, and will hold accountable who we need to hold accountable. That, our commitment to all of you is that we're going to do everything we can as we approach the appropriation season and the upcoming a spending bill negotiation that will take effect in the new fiscal year that will begin in October 1st. We're going to do everything we can in connection with that fight and every other fight to work hard to reverse the damage that is being inflicted on the people of Louisiana and the people of this country. When I came to Congress, I had the opportunity, all of us have had the opportunity to serve with some legends, including John Lewis. You know, the great John Lewis. And he would always, you know, say to us, and, you know, said in the middle of previous legislative fights, don't get drowned in the sea of despair. Because our fight is not a fight of a day or a week or a month or a year. It's the fight of a lifetime. And we're going to show up and stand up and speak up with everything we have on your behalf until we get this bill reversed and can end the national nightmare that we're dealing with right now.
Perfect segue to the next question. I'm going to ask Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz if she would be so kind as to give us an answer. And the question is, can Democrats reverse the damage that this bill has done and will do by legislation? And first, I want to say before she answers, yes, we can. And let me tell you how you do it. Midterm elections. Gotta go vote. Because I will tell you without fear of contradiction, if the Democrats were in control and this man was the Speaker of the House, we'd be talking about something else today. We wouldn't be talking about this. We'd be talking about progress for the American people. Elections have consequences. It's vital that we organize, inform, educate, and vote. So, Congresswoman, can you share with us what can Democrats do to reverse the damage of this big, ugly bill?
I sure can. Thank you so much, Congressman Carter, and thank you all for coming out here tonight, because this is step one. Step one is our community and our communities across this country engaging in the fight. Because you certainly elected us to be your voice. You send Troy Carter to Washington to go to bat for you, and he's in there swinging every single day. But you really are the strength behind our ability to reverse these horrific cuts and these awful policy decisions that are not just going to close rural hospitals or nursing homes across the country. I've heard a lot of our urban and suburban colleagues kind of breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief and say, well, you know, I don't represent a rural area. I don't represent a rural area. I had all of my hospital CEOs come to DC a few weeks ago. They fanned out across the Congress to make sure we understood, as the leader said, that, you know, they have to plan ahead. That's a critical point that the leader made. So they have to plan, you know, how they're going to fund all of the services that hospitals provide far in advance of when that funding is there or not there. So in my area, you know, we have hospitals that are dependent with a large percentage of Medicaid beneficiaries, but it may not be such a high percentage that without those folks coming in, they would close, but instead they're going to have to start cost cutting. So the maternity department closes. The chemotherapy that used to be able to be provided at the hospital, that gets shut down. And so the services that people need, they're going to have to either travel much further for, or they're just not going to be able to get it. I'm talking about even people who can pay for it and are covered by insurance. So people who have insurance coverage shouldn't think, well, I'm not on Medicaid, so these cuts aren't going to affect me. When your access to health care is cut off because those services aren't available anymore, it is most definitely going to affect you. The Children's Health Insurance Program has been impacted significantly, not just with cuts, but with lifetime limits and caps for children's health care. So the answer, yeah, this bill is a parade of horribles. This law now is a parade of horribles that will take an eternity to comb through when we see the impact. So here is what you can do. Yes, elections have consequences. Yes, we all have to make sure that we expend our most important resource. That is not our money, it is our time. And you're spending time here tonight, but I want to encourage you to get involved in the political process if you are not already. It just takes the smallest step and the smallest bit of effort to take a look at your calendar. I would ask each of you tonight, when you go home tonight, don't wait till you go home. On the way home, take out your calendar and look at how much of your personal time you can contribute to making sure that you help us get the word out about the pain that this bill will cause, because we need to motivate folks. We need to people to get up out of their chairs, out of their houses, into the streets, and into the organizations that are registering people to vote. We need people with the energy and the wherewithal to sign up, to knock on doors, and bring flyers and information to voters' households so they understand how they will be impacted, and that they make sure that the turnout challenges that we had for our candidates, that those are erased. Because we have fired up so many people as a result of our Republican friends, I use that term loosely, of the pain that they've caused, that people are flying themselves down to the polls. But it's going to take your effort. It's going to take your effort. Look, I'm from a place, like I said, that's really hot, very hot, hotter than here very often. And it is tough to physically go out and walk door to door in the kind of weather that we all live in. But you can sit down and make calls on the phone. You don't even have to go down to a campaign office to do so. You can do it right from the comfort of your home. There are call tool dialers that you can just sit down in your kitchen, put the TV on, and the dialer does it for you. But we've got to be calling voters. We've got to make sure that people are aware of what they're losing and who took it away from them. And we have to make sure that people go out and vote. We have to win 4 seats. 4 seats across this country. We need to win a lot more so that we can make sure that a mandate is clear, that the American people have rejected the cruelty and pain and the absolute abandonment that the Republicans chose over making sure that we use government as a tool to help their lives better. So my assignment for you, in answer to Troy's question and the question that was submitted, is spend a little bit more, a lot more, of your most precious resource, your time, to help us make sure we get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask our last 2 outstanding members of Congress to answer the same question, beginning with Congresswoman Kelly. What are Democrats doing to fight back against Republicans and the Trump administration? And I know you all would love to have that question, but I'm going to let Robin and then Nanette follow. What are Democrats doing to fight back against Republicans and the Trump administration?
Before I answer that question, one thing that I wanted to say with what Debbie Wasserman Schultz said, that half the people, if I'm correct, Leader, when we were in Democratic Caucus meeting, don't even know anything about the bill. The people that know about the bill know it's terrible.
Well, and they had the audacity to say they didn't read it. And then they had a second chance, Republicans who said...
No, I'm talking about the public.
But I'm talking about the Republicans.
Okay.
Who said...
They didn't know it either.
Who said they didn't read it. We gave them another chance to read it, and they still voted for it.
Right. He gave them 9 hours.
He gave them 9 hours. 9 hours of his blood, sweat, and tears, I might add.
So that's why it's really important that you're an extension of us and that you do speak to people about what's in the bill, because so many people still don't know what's in the bill. And if they don't know, then they might still wind up voting the same way or not voting at all, not realizing how much we're really doing. Democrats are litigating, we're trying to legislate, and we're trying to communicate. And that's why we're here with you. And I always say, I give a shout out to my Attorney General in Illinois, who's also a Kappa, I'll say that. And what the attorney generals, the Democrat attorney generals are doing around the country is really phenomenal. And even the judge, some of the judges that this president appointed, no, he's not doing the right thing. So a lot of things are going to court. There's a lot of litigation, and we're trying to legislate, but we aren't in power. But that's still not stopping us. We're still filing bills, but also we're communicating in our districts, outside of our districts. I told some people tonight that I had a teletown hall meeting. I have the biggest Democratic district in Illinois. I'm urban, suburban, and rural. And I have 4,500 farms in my district. My family lasts. I was born and raised in Manhattan. I'm a New Yorker too. And I married a Chicagoan. But my farmers have a lot of buyer's remorse, even though a lot of them voted for Donald Trump. But they've been in my office crying about it. But we communicating is really, really important, but I have teletown hall meetings, and all my colleagues do this. I had 11,000 on my first one, 13,000 on my second one. I go in their districts and have town hall meetings because they're not having town hall meetings, and people really appreciate it. They say, oh, those are just Democrats coming to the town hall meetings, but that's not true. Republicans and independents are coming also, are coming to the town hall meetings also. So I feel like we are doing everything we can do. We're not just on legacy news, we're on podcasts, we're working with influencers, social media, whatever the young people tell us to do. To get the word out. But yeah, I mean, we're doing everything we can do, doing things like this, so.
Congresswoman Barragán.
Well, Robin Kelly did a great job of summing it up. But let me just add a couple of things. I think number one, the fight for us has been in the House. And so you've heard us talk about being in these committees, extending it long, introducing 500 amendments, trying to get and pick off just 4 Republicans to say, hey, will you fight for your constituents, right? Of course, you've seen Republicans say, we're just going to do whatever Donald Trump tells us to do instead of what's right for our constituents. So we have to continue to highlight the harms that this law is going to have on people because, as Robin said, in public polling, people said they didn't like it, but they couldn't talk about what was actually in the bill that was going to harm people. Let me tell you why that's really important. Because Republicans have just announced they're going to spend millions of dollars talking about this bill. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to spread misinformation and disinformation. So we all have a job to do, not just Democrats up here. We need you to help us fight this disinformation and misinformation. What's the first thing they're saying? It's not going to touch Medicaid. It's a lie. And we need your help in sharing stories, collecting stories, sharing stories, and pushing back. Sometimes that misinformation and the disinformation is within our own families. You ever had a family member text you and say, oh my gosh, is this right? Is this true? We have to make sure we set the record straight. That's why us being on the road, going into communities to share the highlights of the harms of this bill is so critically important. So we're going to do everything. We're going to continue to file lawsuits. We're going to continue to speak out. We're going to continue to travel. We got to be laser focused on 26. The best way to stop this is to make sure you have the power, the subpoena, to bring in people to hold them accountable. It's to make sure you have the power to fund programs that are actually good and not fund the programs that are going to harm people, and to try to reverse course, as the leader had said, doing everything we can to do what we can do to undo this, but we got to be laser focused on 26 to start.
Those of you who are not represented by Troy or Cleo, please don't let them get away with this. Go to their offices, call them, tell them you don't like what they did. Share your stories with them. People come and ask us, come to us, but don't let those Republicans off the hook, please. Don't let them off the hook.
I want to add one more assignment for all of you, because we're talking about the things that we're doing, and we are relentlessly focused on making sure that people know more about this bill and the pain that it's going to cause. But one of the things that I've been doing is I have a one-pager on both sides that really describes the biggest pain points from this bill. And I'm handing it out, everywhere I go and the town hall meetings that I do. But I would invite you to have your own parlor meeting in your home. All of you have friends and neighbors that maybe aren't as plugged into politics as you are, and have them over for coffee. I'm sure that any one of your state legislators locally, you could bring, the state legislators, trust me, they know what kind of impact cuts to Medicaid from the federal government are going to have on their decision making, because there is a trickle-down effect. When we cut Medicaid, that really hurts and drives tremendously painful decisions that state legislators have to make, then local government officials have to make. So I am sure that you would have a laundry list of speakers that could come in and share the impact of this bill much more locally in your backyard, but have folks over. I'm sure, not to give you more work, Troy, but I'm sure that Troy's team could put together a similar one-pager. We have a lot of resources and materials. Put information in people's hands that aren't necessarily glued to the TV or the news every day and aren't involved in it as engaged as you are.
Trust me, our people they get their fill. We send a lot of stuff out. We're constantly sending information out. We have newsletters that go out. We do face-to-cameras. We do town halls. We make sure that we inundate to the point that some of you get tired of hearing from me and getting stuff, but it's important that we keep the information flowing. We as Democrats, we were fighting this big, ugly bill all year long before the media started talking about it. When the cameras aren't rolling, when they're trying to do these middle of the night, literally, middle of the night while you're asleep, amendments and bringing bills while most Americans are asleep, we were up all night fighting them. So it's not a one and done, it's an all-day thing for us. Losing this vote, I want to be very clear. Losing this vote does not in any way mean this fight is over. We lost a battle, not the war. We lost a battle, not the war. And we are energized, we are ready, we are committed, and we're going to fight to the death of us to save your lives, because that's what we do. And we're going to not just do that for Democrats, by the way. For our friends who may be in the audience who are Republicans, because your members won't hold town hall meetings, you're always welcome to ours. Now I'm going to select questions randomly from this. So charge it to the head, not the heart, if I don't get to yours. But I'm going to ask that we do them quickly so we get as many questions as we can so members can kind of give a rapid answer. We'll keep it going because I want to get to as many of your questions as possible. And to see there's nothing favorite, I'm digging without even looking. So now that we know all of this, is there anything the state can do, even our local parts? What can be done to help us? Anybody want to take a crack at that? The state, and I'll give it because the state is going to be crippled. State depends on money from the federal government. I look at my state legislators in the audience, and they're some of the best and brightest our country has to offer, not just in Louisiana, but everywhere. I put my money on them 7 days a week because I know their hearts, I know their intellect. They're going to be upside down. They're going to have a budget hole that they can't fill. The only two options they have is increase taxes, increase the fees to be served, or close down and reduce services. I promise you I never lied to you, and not to sugarcoat it either. That's the God's honest truth. Will everyone on your panel commit to supporting Medicare for all?
I mean, that's an important question, and I think one of the things, and I have been supportive of bills that have been brought in that regard in the past. I think where we're at right now, obviously, is that we're in a defensive posture, and we've got to do everything we can to deal with what is the largest cut to health care in American history. Right? And so I think one of the takeaways as you all communicate with your friends and family and neighbors is this is the largest cut to health care in American history, on top of the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history. They are literally ripping food from the mouths of children, veterans, and seniors. It's outrageous. So it's the largest cut to health care in American history, the largest cut to nutritional assistance in American history, in order to bring about the largest transfer of wealth from everyday Americans to billionaires in American history. That's what this outrageous bill represents. Now, Mitch McConnell once said as part of the debate about a few weeks ago when the bill was in the Senate, and some of his colleagues expressed concern with this assault on health care and this assault on Medicaid, he said, don't worry, the American people will get over it. I've got a clear message for Mitch McConnell. We will never get over it. The American people will never get over it. And that's why your voices are going to be critically important in this battle as we move on throughout the country. One response to the previous question, too, that I wanted to mention, which was interesting in terms of what the state can do and what you all can do, of course, in your communication with your state legislators, that will be important. The Louisiana state legislature, right, which is dominated by Republicans in both the state house and the Senate, passed a resolution
Unanimously.
right before the vote saying, don't do this to our state and don't do this to Medicaid. Talked about the importance of it and how damaging the effort would be. When this was first brought to me, the resolution before the debate, y'all, I thought it was fake news.
That's right.
I couldn't believe it. Then I looked at the vote total and saw the document. And the reality is, like, this is not a Democratic issue or Republican issue in terms of who's going to be affected. It's going to affect every single American, regardless of your political affiliation. It's an all-out assault on the American people. And it requires all hands on deck, which is why we're so thankful that all of you are here. And our commitment to you is that we're going to do everything we can until we end this national nightmare in the United States of America and allow this country to be the best version of herself, the best version of herself.
In America, in the richest country in the world, no one should be without health care, and no one should go to bed hungry. I think we did. No one in America, no one in America should be without health care. That's a yes. Well, I mean, no one means no one. That means everyone should have health care. In the richest country in the world, everyone, period, full stop, should have access to health care. Can you explain, with the attack on our democracy is not being stopped, and what will it take to do so? Can you explain why the attack on our democracy is not being stopped, and what will it take to stop it? Debbie?
Well, as a number of my colleagues said, we are focused in fighting back in every way and using every tool at our disposal. So we are fighting legislatively in Congress. We are fighting outwardly in the community because we need the armies of the people that we represent to be very communicative and engaged and involved in expressing your opposition to your own representatives. And then we need you to go to the polls and turn out in droves to be able to make change at the ballot box so that we can make change in the Congress and across the country. But we are also fighting in the courts. And there have been hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits. We have a litigation and response committee that has been set up by Leader Jeffries. I'm one of the co-chairs of that task force as well, and we're all three of us are involved in it. But one of the main focuses of that task force, and we're led by Jamie Raskin and Joe Neguse, both of whom are two of our brilliant lawyers and legal minds in our caucus. And we are so fortunate to have them at the helm of this task force. And so we are submitting amicus curiae briefings to these courts to back up these lawsuits. We've won many, many of these lawsuits. And, the concern is obviously that this is a lawless administration that has no regard for the Constitution or for, what statutes require them to do. But, there are judges that are using enforcement tools to hold their feet to the fire. And so across the country, winning these lawsuits and reversing the firings, reversing some of the cuts, that has been an essential component of what we're doing to try to stop them.
Listen, we know that we got a lot of questions left. We're not going to get to them all, so I'm going to ask members if we can speak all night on this stuff, because as you can tell, we're very passionate
We're a little passionate.
And they're very passionate, and they're very in-depth answers to the questions. I don't want to seem like we're going to give one-and-done quick answers, but in order to really get to as many as we can, let's try to pop them as fast as we can. As you know, we can talk all night if you give us a mic. So, on the bottom here. This is for you, Speaker Jeffries. Speaker Jeffries, we often hear, and we've talked so much about Project 2025. I've heard you talk about Project 2026. Can you share with us Project 2026?
Well, and I'll be brief. I promise I won't speak for 8 hours and 44 minutes. But, these are all incredibly important questions and incredibly important issues. And so this is an ongoing effort, ongoing conversation. I think, I've suggested that this moment is going to require sustained energy, sustained intensity, sustained righteousness until we get things turned around into a better place. Now, the Republicans spent all of last year talking about their interest in lowering the high cost of living, which is too high in the United States of America. It's too high in Louisiana. It's too high in New York. It's too high all across the country. They promised, in fact, to lower costs on day one. Costs aren't going down, they're going up. They're going up. Inflation is getting worse. Life is getting more expensive. And they're not focused on it at all. At the same time, they spent all of last year running away from Project 2025 as if it didn't exist. And all the extremism that we're seeing this year comes straight out of the Project 2025 playbook. They lied to the American people. Now, it was said during the beginning of the Republic, because we have to battle them in the Congress, battle them in the courts, and then battle them in community after community after community to win the hearts and minds of the American people, which is where all of you come in. And it was said during the beginning of this great democratic experiment that has now lasted 249 years through a lot of challenges and trial and tribulation and turbulence, that when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. But when the government fears the people, there is liberty. There is liberty. And what Project 2026 is going to be all about is making sure that the people have the opportunity to express themselves in community after community after community, showing up and standing up and speaking up, and ultimately making your voices heard during that first Tuesday in November of 2026, where all of you will have the opportunity to make clear that in the United States of America, there are no kings, there are no monarchs, there are no autocrats, there's a democracy, and the people are going to make that clear as part of Project 2026.
Thank you. Plaquemine Parish needs your help with FEMA oppression. I'll answer that one for you. In the middle of hurricane season, the last thing we should talk about is diminishing the role of FEMA. The last thing we should talk about is taking satellites out of the skies that help us predict what happens with our erratic atmospheric actions. The last thing we should do is reduce the amount of people on the ground to address and have early warning systems. Our brothers and sisters in Texas, our heart goes out and we pray for them. We see what happens when you minimize the amount of people that are there to care for. We will continue as the co-chair of the Disaster Recovery Caucus in the United States Congress. We will continue to fight. In addition to serving on ENC, I also serve on Homeland Security. We have direct oversight of FEMA. We will continue to work with Secretary Noem and this president to bring the kind of attention to the facts that when people are hurting, you don't take away resources, you increase them. So, brother, we hear you, and we're going to continue to fight with you on that. How do we use FEMA dollars to build and run the Everglade detention centers? What is the DNC's position on Mandani? The infighting with DNC needs to stop and get in line behind candidates, we the people. I will tell you that there's a democracy and people are going to vote for a candidate in New York City. We're going to vote for a Democrat. Just that simple. We're going to vote for a Democrat that opposes the standards and the wishes and dreams of the Democratic Party, which is to fight for the people. That's where the DNC stands on that race. I already answered the question as it relates to FEMA. We're going to continue to fight to make sure that FEMA is funded, that it stands up, that it's not reduced, that it's not shifted to the states to add to the burden that the states already have. The president says, we're going to shift the burden to the states and we're going to give them less money. Help me understand where that makes any sense. In Louisiana alone, we know all too well what it's like to have to suffer through hurricane seasons. We are on the cusp of the 20th anniversary of Katrina. If it were not for FEMA, as flawed as it may be, where would we be? Without BRIC funds to build on and to make it stronger after the storm, where would we be? FEMA needs to be reformed. FEMA needs to be reimagined. FEMA needs to be strengthened, but it does not need to be eliminated.
Troy, the first part of that question mentioned the ICE detention center in the Everglades.
Yes, please.
Here's the answer. No cages in the Everglades. No ICE detention cages in the middle of a swamp, in the pathway, in Hurricane Alley. No abusive practices. We're going to get to see some cleansed, sanitized version that the state is going to show us on Saturday. But mark my words, there is a federal law that I helped pass to ensure that members of Congress can get unannounced visits into ICE detention centers. And we are going to get in there and hold these you-know-whats accountable.
And thank you, Debbie. And if I could just add on this, we're going to continue to work hard to make sure that we have a secure border. We recognize that we have a broken immigration system. We should fix it in a comprehensive and a bipartisan way, not in this partisan way that's being done. We had an administration that promised that they were going to go after violent felons. They're not going after violent felons. They're going after law-abiding immigrant families. And we're going to stand up for dreamers. We're going to stand up for farm workers. We're going to stand up for law-abiding immigrant families. And we're going to do everything we can to make sure that these masks come off these ICE agents.
And we're going to do this real quickly. How does the state anticipate balancing its budget without Medicaid? I gave you the answer earlier. They're going to increase fees. They're going to close down hospitals. They're going to reduce services because they can't print money. Jason, am I right? Jason happens to serve on Appropriations Committee, is now standing member of the House, and is one of my absolute partners in justice. And I will tell you, they won't be able to do it. You hear the term often, a fiscal cliff. Well, this is, in fact, a fiscal cliff. The state cannot sustain itself with these cuts. I'm going to do 2 more because we've already far spent our time, and I know you're tired. Yes, ma'am. I like it. Give her a mic. Will top tier 1 prescription drug costs be increased? Short answer, yes. Short answer, yes. I thank you for serving as our congressman. I thank you for letting me. Currently, health care pays for those medicines without an out-of-pocket cost to me. Unfortunately, ma'am, now there will be a copay. Now there will be a copay, and it was just spoken a minute ago because some have said, if I pay, you pay. Well, if you have it, you can pay. And if I don't, why should I? It's America, and we slide our scales, and people are struggling to get by, and people shouldn't have to make a decision. Do I take half a pill or a whole pill? Do I take a full dose of my medicine to stay alive, or do I ration it so I can keep my heat on in the cold winter? Un-American, unconscionable, evil. Since the big, ugly bill, I won't call it beautiful, I'm glad you didn't, delays many of the worst effects until after midterms, how does the party plan to make that clear to voters? I'm afraid many won't be aware of this, and had they known, they would have voted against those who voted for it.
One of the biggest effects people are going to feel right away is if you get your health insurance on the ACA marketplace, the Affordable Care Act, it's a sliding scale, so you might get assistance paying for that premium. That is going to go away. And that's going away this year. So people's health insurance premiums this year will go up because they've decided not to fund that, instead to fund billionaire tax cuts. So we have to tell everybody about that. And when it happens, we got to remind people it was Republicans who let this happen because of their billionaire tax cuts.
Perfect segue to this person who said, you guys have to go to Fox, Newsmax, MAGA Podcast, and tell the truth. Call them out, have press conferences after their cabinet meetings expressing the lies and the BS that they're telling. Duly noted. We got to meet them and beat them. Yes, ma'am. What can the average American do right now to stop this attack on our democracy? What can we expect our leaders to be doing more of this? We will continue to fight, as the leader often talks about, in the courts, the Congress, and the community. And this is our chance in the community. This is our civil rights moment. If you asked, where were you? Many of you were there in the battle. Some of you were not because you were too young. Well, now we have a shot. That means we have to be organized. We have to stand up. We have to do everything that Debbie said a moment ago when she said, call your friends. You don't have to leave and go door to door. It's too hot, but you can sit at home and you can get on the internet if you are so inclined. You can make phone calls. You can tweet. You can text. You can go when you go to church, the synagogue or mosque, when you go to your club meetings, fraternities, sororities, or in your family at the kitchen table. Make this one of the subjects that you talk about. Talk to our young people. They're never too young to understand their government and democracy. Talk to our senior citizens because they have forgotten more than we'll ever learn. Let's all stay engaged. What is the plan to take back the U.S. House and Congress next year midterms?
Yeah, we this is an official event, so the plan is to make sure that we get the word out about all the pain that Donald Trump and his MAGA extremist cult followers in Congress have caused. And we're going to ensure that we have armies of people who will go out and spread that message and draw the contrast. We're recruiting candidates, top quality candidates all across the country, and we are going to make sure that people come out to vote and that we win 4 seats to make this man Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Yes. Now, I feel like a Baptist preacher saying, I'm closing. I'm closing. I'm closing. One more. I'm closing, y'all. What will you do to engage the public, nonprofits, and grassroots organizations to oppose this big, ugly bill? We're doing it right now. We're going to keep doing this. We're going to go all over the country. I've gone all over the state. We're going to continue to do more of this within the state. We're going to travel across the country. We're going to use our voices because we may not have the votes, but we have our voices. We're going to do all of the above of everything that you've said, rather it is going to Fox, Newsmax, going to the MAGA people, giving them an opportunity to be heard because their people aren't listening to them, and recognizing that we are for the people and they are for the person, the orange person. As I close.
Yeah, this is Troy Carter's magic minute moment right now.
As Congressman Carter often says, the 3 C's in the community, what are the things that each congressman can do, to each community member can do to help? What are the things each community member can do tonight? How can Democrats fight? You can stay engaged. You can use your voices. You can do the things I mentioned a moment ago. Talk about this everywhere you go. Consider yourselves duly deputized. Consider yourselves duly deputized as official surrogates of the American people.
Troy, I have one other suggestion, because we want to make sure that we're giving you so many different things to do to help us get the word out. Follow every one of us on social media. We are all on every social media there is, Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of it. And use all of those platforms yourself to share the information that we are sharing on our social media. Because, look, when I grew up on Long Island, I'm a native New Yorker too, there were 7 channels, 3 main channels, Channel 11, Channel 9, which was out of Chicago, and PBS, and that was it. That is obviously not how many channels there are today. And when I am home and people are saying to me, Debbie, I don't see you out there as much, and what's happening? I know you're on TV, but most of the reason that you don't see a lot of us as often as you would think, and you're not hearing that you've seen us, is because the communications platforms are so diffuse now and younger people get their news from social media. So we need you to share what we're sharing with our constituents, and make sure you're following, follow Jamie Raskin, follow Joe Neguse and all of our top leadership, to make sure that you're helping us amplify our messaging. That'll help more people know about how terrible the impact that Republicans have on America right now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and one of the things that...
That on me now.
Yeah, one of the things that we've also urged people to do, and we began this effort a few months ago, early in the new administration, is that, we started a portal so that everyday Americans from across the country could share their story with us, because Republican leadership told their members, don't hold town hall meetings. They're running away from the American people. We're running toward the American people. And so we're going to continue to make sure that we can lift up stories from all over the nation. So we started a portal. It's democraticleader.house.gov/share your story. democraticleader.house.gov/share your story.
And it's actually been shared on this big screen, Mr. Leader.
That's great.
Can we pull that back up so it's there now so people can take a photo?
And we'd ask everybody to pass that along. Share your personal stories, the stories of your family and your friends and your neighbors, so we can elevate the personal impacts that all of this is having on the American people. Because there's nothing more powerful than when everyday Americans hear about the impact on everyday Americans in getting this situation turned around.
Also, the other thing with the Congressional Black Caucus, we just met with a group of ministers because they're going to become engaged. So we send them information about what's going on, and then they share it with the folks that come to church. So everything we can do with every different group is very, very helpful too, because you know how many churches there are.
I direct your attention to my left, your right, the screen that the leader was just speaking of. You can take photos of it to make sure that you're providing your story, that we can amplify that in settings like this and across the country to make sure the American people hear true stories. Let me thank you all. I want to thank everyone for your time and participation tonight. I also want to extend a heartfelt gratitude to our incredible impacted guests who were here, who told their stories. Give them another round of applause, please. While you're clapping, keep clapping for my outstanding members of Congress for sharing their expertise, their insight on this important issue, and equally as important, flying all the way from their home states to be with us tonight, demonstrating how important Louisiana is in the whole mix of our country. Give them a round of applause. It's clear from our discussion that Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act remains a vital lifeline for many Louisianians, and we must continue working together to ensure our healthcare systems meet the needs of our communities that are impacted. And we must make sure they're protected now and for generations to come. Your voices and experiences are crucial in shaping the future of healthcare in Louisiana and in America, and we're committed to carrying your concerns, ideas forward to Washington. We must advocate for policies that improve access, affordability, and quality of care for all Americans, for all Americans. As we move forward, let us stay engaged, keep the conversation going, and continue to support one another, love one another, work together to uplift one another. Thank you again for being here tonight and for your commitment to making Louisiana a healthier and stronger state and making America a healthier and stronger state. God bless you all, and good night.